Namaste, friends, and welcome back to the podcast. This past month has been all about reconnecting with our bodies and how important that is if we want to live a life that feels connected, peaceful, joyful, if we want clarity as we're moving through this midlife transition. So much of our being comes from being able to be in close connection with our bodies, to feel and hear the signals that it is trying to send us, and to be able to have enough trust, enough faith in those signals to follow them. And so that's what we've been talking about over the past month. And I highly recommend, if you haven't listened to those episodes, to go back and listen. But for today, we're going to talk about the 5 common mistakes that people make when they're doing this work. There are 5 things that I commonly see in women, and it's all 5 are pretty related to over efforting, which is very common for us midlife women, right? We want to do things and we want to do them well, and we want to be good, quote unquote, at it. And so sometimes we make it a job. And we're going to talk about the 5 ways that that happens and how we can try to avoid those pitfalls. Because when we start making self-care a job or another thing that we have to do, it stops being self-care. It stops being about coming home to ourselves, our authentic selves, and starts being more about proving, another way of proving. The ego is so very tricky and sneaky, and it tries to weasel its way into every area, including places where it has no business being, right? Which is in our returning home to ourselves, in our connection to our spiritual selves, our higher selves, and to whatever it is that is greater for you. So we're going to talk about that. But before we get into the specifics of those five stumbling blocks, I just want to remind you that I have a coaching offer out right now. It is 4 weeks long, and it is all about just this, returning home to your body, learning to get out of your head and live in your body, to be able to not only feel the messages that it's trying to send you, but to be able to interpret them, understand them, and actually apply them in your life. And this is the work that leads to that underlying sense of peace, of clarity, and of steadiness and ease. It's when we are in deep connection to our body, because our bodies are simply a portal to our deeper selves. So if you are interested in reconnecting with your body, if you realize that you are primarily living from your mind and you're feeling the effects of that, and you want to be able to tap in to the wisdom that lies within you, then this program is for you. It is only 4 weeks long, but we do a tremendous amount of work in that 4 weeks to bring you home to yourself. So the link for that offer is in my show notes. It is a limited time offer. I will only be continuing to offer this for the next month because of my schedule and the way my schedule is working out. But I really would love to see you take advantage of it, because if you're on the fence, if you feel like you need to do this work, but you're just not either ready or you don't have the time to commit to a full coaching container, this is a beautiful start. And you will get so much out of this program without having to commit to a full 12-week coaching container. All right, my friends, let's talk about pitfalls. So, the number one mistake that I find women making is that they want to come back to their bodies and they want to be able to do it immediately. They want to be able to feel everything, process everything, and stay with every uncomfortable sensation. But this is another form of efforting or force. And coming home to our bodies is the exact opposite of that. It is about allowing and receiving more than it is about efforting and forcing. When we try to force ourselves to feel more than we have the capacity to feel, we actually are harming ourselves. This is a form of traumatizing ourselves. We need to, like building a muscle, we need to build the capacity to be with the sensations of our bodies because it's not always pleasant. Those sensations, over time, you will learn how to tap into pleasant sensations and you will experience pleasant sensations more and more often. But if you've been deeply disconnected from your body for a long time, and let me just say that we don't disconnect for no reason. The disconnection occurs because at some point, that was a protection mechanism for us. It actually made sense for us to disconnect. We may have been trying to protect ourselves from something, cope with something, survive something. And through those life experiences, whether it be trauma or grief or loss or illness, we develop this coping mechanism of disconnecting from the body. But those feelings that you experience when you went through grief, trauma, loss, illness, they're still inside of you. They have not left because if you're disconnected from your body, you haven't been able to process them. Processing emotions means that you have to be able to feel them in your body. And when that becomes too overwhelming, we disconnect. And so the emotions don't get processed, they just get stored. And so when we start coming back to our bodies, those stored emotions may want to surface. They may begin to surface. And so that can feel uncomfortable. There's a certain level of pain that's associated with that. And we have to build the capacity to sit with that pain. So when we enter this project, let's say, of coming home to ourselves, we set this goal that we want to reconnect with our bodies. If we are impatient and we want it to happen quickly, then we may force ourselves to stay with feelings that we aren't really ready to do. And what will happen is that your body will instinctually, your body and your mind will instinctually try to protect you. So you will likely just shove those feelings down even further without even, without intention. It's just something that will happen because the alarm signals are going off and your body and your mind are saying, it's not safe, it's not safe. So, what I'm asking here is that if you are doing this work on your own without me or another coach to help you, is that you start to recognize, you start to bring awareness to when the sensations become too uncomfortable. We talk about in yoga something called your edge. If you take yoga classes, you probably have heard your instructor use that term. Don't go past your edge. So the edge is the place in the pose where you're feeling the work of the pose, but you are not pushing past the point that you're going to actually injure yourself. So, for example, a great easy example would be a forward fold. Where are you reaching as you're folding over your legs? Where are you reaching? Are you getting to your knees, to your shins, to your feet, to the floor? Where is that place that you can reach for where you feel a stretch happening in the back of the legs? It feels a little bit intense, but also good, and you can breathe through it. But if you were to push past that, you might tear a hamstring, right? You might actually injure yourself. Well, when we're coming home to our bodies in this more energetic way, less physical, more energetic, we have to keep in mind that same concept of the edge. So we want to sit with the uncomfortable emotions up to our edge. We want to sit with them until we start saying, I can't breathe through this. This feels so uncomfortable that I feel like I might actually be hurting myself. And that's when we come out. So The common mistake is I go past my edge. I force myself to sit with these very, very uncomfortable emotions and sensations in my body. And I actually harm myself by forcing myself to sit there. And then my body and my mind, in an effort to protect me, pull back and shove the emotion further down. So that is mistake number one. And I hope that my description is clear. And I always say this every episode, but I'm saying it again. If anything I ever say in any of these episodes is unclear, please reach out to me. That is why I am here. I am a yoga teacher. This is what I love to do, is to help people to understand these concepts so they can apply them in their own lives. And sometimes these concepts are kind of abstract, especially if you haven't experienced them before. They can feel a little bit like you can't wrap your brain around them. So if that's ever your experience, please do not hesitate to reach out to me so that we can talk through them. Okay, mistake number two, thinking that the body should always feel calm. This is a high achiever mistake, another over efforting mistake. So we kind of touched on this with what you're talking about with mistake number one. When we first start doing this work, the body may not feel calm. And even after we've been doing this work for a while, though we may feel calm a lot more often, there are still going to be times where the body doesn't feel calm. Embodiment doesn't mean that you are in a natural and consistent state of peace and bliss. I wish that it did. But what embodiment actually means is that you have, and we're coming back to this word capacity again, you have the capacity to be with whatever is present. So sometimes it's going to be this wonderful, peaceful, floaty, blissful sensation. But sometimes it's going to be grief, or it's going to be anger, fatigue, anxiety. And that's okay too, because these are all part of the human condition. These experiences, these emotions are not something that I am suggesting that we run away from. In fact, I'm saying the complete opposite. I'm saying I am encouraging you to meet them lovingly and with compassion, to meet them and to hold them. And it is in that holding and that ability to be with that allows them to pass through. Like a wave, these things will rise up, they will meet their peak, and then they will just start receding away. And that's when we know we've really done the work, is that we have practiced this skill, and these are skills enough that we can be with the fullness of an emotion without it overwhelming us, without us having to retreat and pull away. And that takes time, that takes practice. So we shouldn't be thinking or expecting that we can do that immediately, that we will make this decision that I'm going to grin and bear it and sit through it, and then I will feel peaceful all the time. That is an unrealistic expectation. So please, I really invite you to take that expectation off of the table and just know that this is a practice and that you are building capacity to be with all feelings, the positive, lovely feelings and the challenging feelings, and that we should never at any point in this journey expect ourselves to feel calm and peaceful at all times. Mistake number three, staying in the head while trying to connect to the body. This is so common. If you have been living in your mind primarily for many years of your life, the mind is very strong. You have really built the muscle of the mind, and you've built these neural pathways of thinking, analyzing, solving, interpreting. These are all mind processes. And if you've been living in the mind for all this time, you've really strengthened these processes. So when you start coming into the body, it's not as though the mind just suddenly gives up on doing these things that it's been doing for years. So, what does this look like? Well, maybe you are trying to feel into your body and you start feeling a sensation, but then the mind starts asking questions. Why am I feeling this? Where did it come from? What does it mean? How do I fix it? Particularly if it's an unpleasant sensation, right? How do I fix this? How do I make it go away? What should I do with this sensation? These are all these are all thoughts coming from the mind that are actually keeping us out of the body because if we're focusing on both the question and then the answer to the question, right? Because if you, let's say you ask the question, what does this mean? Well, immediately when the mind asks, what does this mean? The mind is going to try to answer the question. Where did this come from my childhood? Why was it stored here? Is it going to be here forever? I don't like the way that it feels, right? The mind starts spiraling. And then that takes us out of the body. We have now left our bodies and we're now back living in the mind. So here's a little workaround because this is going to happen. So let me just say that very loud and clear so that you can anticipate this and know that when it arises for you, that it's a normal part of the process and that you can work with it. So when you start over analyzing a sensation, simply name it. So let's say something feels tight. You just say tight. That's it. And release it. Or maybe something feels heavy. You say heavy and release it. And ask yourself if you can stay for just one more breath. One more breath. So let's say you're feeling a tightening in your chest. It's very uncomfortable. You say to yourself, tight. Can I stay for one more breath? And if the answer is yes, then you take one more breath. And then you can say it again. Can I stay for one more breath? If the answer is yes, stay for one more breath. If the answer is no, then you come out. You come out of the pose, you come out of the meditation, you come out of whatever you're doing. But giving yourself the option, giving yourself the permission to stay or to go is self-compassion. It is self-love. And it is that allowing, right? Because that's what we want to do. We're not trying to force anything here. We're trying to allow. That's back to mistake number one is trying to force yourself to come back into the body. So by asking that question, can I stay for one more breath? You are giving your soul and your body the permission to decide where the edge is for you that day in that moment. And that's another thing I didn't address earlier and I want to bring up is that your edge will change from day to day. It's not going to be the same all the time, and you shouldn't expect it to be. Similar to the body. You may notice that some days your body feels energetic and light, and some days it feels heavy and tight. And we don't need to analyze or fix that either. We just need to know that that's how the body's feeling today, and we're going to respect it. And the same thing comes when we're trying to live in the body. We're trying to come home to the body. Sometimes we're going to be able to sit with uncomfortable feelings and sensations for longer periods of time. We're going to be able to let that wave rise up and be with it. And at other times, other days, the answer is going to be no, I can't stay with this for one more breath. I need to come out. And that is okay too. Okay, mistake number four, judging the body instead of listening to it. So, likely, if you're a midlife woman, you have spent decades evaluating your body, judging your body on how it looks, what size it is, how well it's performing, comparing it to other people's bodies. And so when we try to come back to the body, we might still approach this process with judgment because we're used to judging our bodies. Unfortunately, for many of us, that is just how we have been programmed. That is the pattern that we are running. And so instead of when you notice that, if you notice, I'm judging this sensation that I'm feeling. I'm judging even just the way my body looks. I'm judging that my body feels tired today, or tight today. Can we can we reframe this? Can we say we cannot come home to a body that we are constantly criticizing? And instead of saying what is wrong with my body, asking what is my body asking for? And this one, as a regular yoga practitioner, not just a teacher, but as a regular practitioner, there's nowhere that it is more apparent to me than how much the body changes from day to day and how my practice can be radically different from one day to the next. And that wasn't true when I was younger. When I was younger, pretty much every day that I showed up to the mat was about the same. My body felt about the same as the previous practice. So it was a real wake up call when I started showing up to the mat and noticing that each day was that line from Forrest Gump. Every day is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. And I think that's life. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. And that's how I feel about my body when I show up on my yoga mat. And I often don't even know until I start moving. It's when I start moving that it becomes so clear how my body is feeling that day. And in the beginning, it was very frustrating because I was used to a certain level of physical practice. And I was finding that there were a lot of days that I couldn't reach that level of physical practice, not without harming myself. Okay. And harming myself, I don't mean pulling a muscle or tweaking my back, but without having compassion for myself. Because yoga practice without compassion is not yoga. The essence of the practice is compassion. So when we're pushing our bodies beyond what they are calling for that day, we are not practicing one of the 10 ethical guidelines of yoga, which is ahisma or nonviolence. So we're actually being violent to ourselves when we're doing that. And so the whether it's in your actual asana practice, your posture practice, or it's any other way that you are attempting to be in your body, if the body is not um, not where you in your mind would like it to be, and you begin judging it for that, you are not practicing ahisma, and you are pushing yourself further away from your body because you're essentially telling it you're not good enough, right? There's something wrong with you. So to reframe that instead of what is wrong with me or what is wrong with my body, asking what is my body asking for today in this moment. And you will be amazed over time how the body starts answering the question and how learning to follow the body's lead changes your relationship to the body because the body is like a friend. And so when you criticize it and judge it and always feel like it's not enough, how would a friend feel if that's how you behave towards them? But when you listen to it and you have love and compassion for it and you ask it what it needs and then you follow the advice that it gives, think about that as a friendship and how that would change your relationship with another person. And that's what we're doing here. We're creating this relationship with our body. And that relationship requires the same love and care and attention and non-judgmental acceptance as any other relationship in your life. And personally, I think the relationship with your body is one of the most important relationships you could have, that you do have in your life. Mistake number 5, treating embodiment like another thing to achieve. Here goes, this is, more of that over efforting. So I see this all the time in kind of the self-care, health, wellness space, right? It starts to become a job, from how many grams of protein you get in, to how many times a week that you are lifting weights, to if you're cold plunging or doing infrared saunas or breath work, or on and on it goes, right? We couldn't possibly have enough hours in the day to do all the things that are recommended to us for our health and well-being. And instead of these things actually contributing to our overall well-being, which goes beyond just our physical health, our well-being, it starts to actually retract from it, because now it has become stressful. There is guilt involved because maybe we didn't get to lift 3 times this week, or maybe we didn't get to meditate every single day, or we missed our cold plunge, right? So now we feel like we're failing, and we are turning healing into something we either do correctly or incorrectly. We're doing it right or we're doing it wrong. And just that judgment alone is is really squelching any of the benefits that you might be receiving from the practice. So I want I want you to try to consider these practices of coming home to your body as, can I return to myself for just one small moment, right? Instead of trying to make this another job and another thing to add to your to-do list, can it be just something that is integrated into your daily life, into the things that you do all the time? If you can get to a yoga class, amazing, beautiful, powerful. I hope you do. It's a lovely thing to do. But if you can't, that is not failing. You have not done it incorrectly. You are still on the path. One breath sitting at your desk, just feeling one breath, right, is coming home to your body. Deciding to rest because you feel tired that day is coming home to your body. Looking in the mirror and saying, I look good today. I really am, happy. You look beautiful, body, is coming home to yourself. It doesn't have to be a formal practice. Catching yourself when the negative self-talk appears and making a decision in that moment to reverse the self-talk, to apologize to your body. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I said that. I'm sorry that I thought that. It's just such a habit of mine. I didn't mean it. I love you, right? Placing a hand on your heart and saying, I love you, right? These are all embodiment practices, and they can be done anywhere, anytime, when you notice you're disconnected. So you don't have to, again, treat it like a job or a checklist where you have to create the time and space to do it. You have to carve out that time and space. You just have to notice in a moment when you are not being a good friend to your body, notice it and take one small action to realign, to re-come home, to recommit to being a good friend to your own body. Okay, so I hope those were all helpful tips. As I mentioned, you can always reach out to me if there's anything that is confusing or doesn't make sense to you. I would be happy to talk it through, to help it land for you and really make sense. That's what I want. I want this to resonate with you and for it to make sense. And if you want guidance on this journey, sign up for that 4-week coaching session. We will together walk this path. and get you to a place where you are friends with your body. You do love it deeply and you treat it like you treat your best friend, because your body is your best friend. All right, my friends, namaste. I hope you have a beautiful week. And maybe once the last line of this episode finishes, you just take one big deep breath and feel into that. And you have come home to your body for today. Namaste. I love you all.